The government in Texas wants to install a high-speed train from Houston to Dallas. By high speed, I mean over 200 miles per hour. The train would travel over 60 times a day between the two cities. But local residents there are up in arms because for some, the installation of this train means a high-speed rail roaring through their backyards 60 times a day. And for others, it means loss of their property completely to the government through eminent domain. Take a look.
This controversial high-speed rail project will greatly impact the rural communities and landowners in my district. It has potential to fracture our rural lifestyle without direct economic or transportation benefits to our communities, to our families and businesses. That's why I believe this should not be a federal project, nor should it receive federal loan guarantees. And I opposed the route that so damages the communities in my district.
Joining me now is founder and president of the Market Institute, Charlie Sauer. Charlie, hi, how are you?
Good, thanks for having me on.
Of course, good to see you. Charlie, tell me more about this. We heard the congressman on this video say that it will fracture the lifestyle in rural communities. Do you find that to be accurate?
Well, I mean, as you said, there's a 200-mile-an-hour train traveling 60 times a day in these people's backyards. To put that into perspective, that's more times per day than a recent study said that millennials check their phones. I mean, this is devastating to what these people, to their families, it's devastating to their communities, and it's devastating to their freedom. One of the things about trains and what's interesting about this project is that trains are kind of American, right? And so, I mean, there's a song, the Folsom Prison Blues, that actually talks about the freedom that it reminds prisoners of as it goes by and toots its horn. And that's what 60 times a day, these people that the government's going to come and take away their land. They're going to hold a cleaver over their head and bring it down, and they're going to take away what their private property rights. And that's not what we should do. A private company should go in and buy this land the way that everybody else goes in and buys things. They shouldn't use the government as their attack dog.
Right, Charlie, I was hoping that you were going to get on and sing that song for us today. I had pretty high hopes. That's how you'd open the segment. But I'm going to hold you to that the next time. Tell me, eminent domain, though, this is a very controversial topic. It's in our Constitution, but for this type of scenario, Charlie, is it common to be used for this?
I mean, no, it's not. But the Supreme Court's use of public use has been liberal throughout the years. So eminent domain is a part of our Constitution. The paying for land taken by the government is a part of the Fifth Amendment. This is one of the first amendments that was passed. It was important. And that's because, you know, in other countries, the government could just take land and put soldiers in your house. And so we took private property rights very seriously. And that's one of the things that's helped America grow. People are willing to buy land, invest in that land, and care for it and pass it down from generation to generation. So no, you know, a road for eminent domain, great. A dam, okay. But when you actually start using it for a hotel or a train, that's where, for a private company, that's where we've really stepped over the line.
Right, and I feel like most of the time when eminent domain is on the news, it's a horror story. We're hearing about some innocent person, usually either a girl or an old lady who's had her lifelong property stolen from her. What's the criteria here, constitutionally and then in legal precedent? What's the criteria for government to be able to say, even if you don't want to sell your property, even if you don't want to move, we're still going to take it from you?
Well, the criteria is public use. And so, I mean, a business is always going to say, hey, what we're doing is for public use. And what the recent fights have been are for more economic development. That what we're doing, this building of a high-speed train between Dallas and Houston, is going to bring good economics to both cities. And, you know, I don't think that they're right on that. They're definitely not right in the long run when you talk about taking people's land and what that means for investment in property in the future. But it also doesn't mean bringing any economic development to the people that are in between that route and taking over their land at what has historically been lower than the actual market rates.
So what are the pros then? If they're talking about this high-speed train bringing economic value, to whom is it bringing value and how?
Well, I mean, you know, a lot of this is all made up at this point. So they're looking at ridership numbers, and they have to make up those ridership numbers because there's no high-speed rail that's going between the two cities right now. So everybody in this situation, it's called in the business world getting rich by multiplication. So they want to prove their point by multiplication, and they're going to say how many people are going to ride it and therefore how good it is based on saved hours. But nothing is assured that anybody's going to ride the train. Nothing's assured that it's going to actually bring that economic value. And we know, if anything, that what we do know in this is that it's going to take away the private property rights of those landowners. And again, as the congressman said, it's going to fracture those communities.
Right, and the number of people that ride a train seems to speak more to convenience to me than to necessity or economic value. But what's the recourse of these citizens? Do they have any way that they can contest this?
So I want to go back to the first part that you said. It's actually interesting. In the U.S., passenger rail tends to lose money, and moving of goods and using the non-passenger trains actually makes money. If we look in Japan, the makers of the train, it's actually the opposite. So when they move goods, they lose money, and when they move people, they make money. So I think it's really important to understand the economics of trains in the United States is different than in Japan. It's a different, there's a lot of land in Texas. There's not as much land in Japan. What's the recourse of these people? Right now, it's getting in touch with their congressman, getting in touch with the government, making sure that the government is not prepared to use eminent domain on this, and that when the company possibly asks for guaranteed loans, that everybody's ready to say no to that. And so right now it's just reaching out, calling their congressmen, calling their representatives, and getting active.
Right, and I think it also gives good value if you can lay out, like you just did very clearly, that there aren't economic values that will be brought to these communities, that it's actually detrimental, because if for public use is the criteria for eminent domain, if it's supposed to create value and this doesn't, it seems like that nullifies their whole argument. But of course, I'm no legal expert on that. Charlie, on that note, we are out of time, but it was great to talk to you. Still ahead, a mob of people stormed a library at Dartmouth College and hurled racial slurs at students there. But the administration won't punish them. Find out why next with Dr. Ron Martinelli.